Let me be honest with you right from the start. Most people finish their dinner, maybe grab a small snack, brush their teeth, and go to bed without giving a single thought to what that last hour before sleep is doing to their body. And I completely understand that. Life is busy. By the time evening rolls around, most of us are mentally done for the day. But here is something that very few people realize, and this genuinely surprised me the first time I came across the research behind it. What you eat in that final window before you sleep, even something as simple as one specific food, can set off a chain reaction inside your body that quietly works to protect your heart, sharpen your brain, and balance your blood sugar while you are completely unconscious and unaware of any of it. Now, I know that sounds like one of those bold claims that gets thrown around on the internet, but stay with me here because this is not about miracle supplements or some trendy product being pushed on social media. This is grounded in real human biology and the kind of information that your doctor often does not have time to explain during a 10-minute appointment. In the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly what food we are talking about, why the timing of eating it actually matters more than most people think, and how it connects directly to three of the biggest health concerns facing Americans right now, which are heart disease, cognitive decline, and unstable blood sugar. And I promise you, by the time this video is over, you are going to look at your bedtime routine in a completely different way. So let me start with something that sets the foundation for everything else I am about to share. Your body does not simply switch off when you fall asleep. While you are lying there completely still and unaware of your surroundings, your body is running what I like to think of as a nighttime maintenance shift. Your cells are repairing themselves. Your liver is processing and clearing waste. Your brain is running a literal cleaning cycle where it flushes out toxic proteins that build up during the day. Your cardiovascular system is doing critical recovery work, and your blood sugar, which many people assume just sits quietly during sleep, is actually going through a series of natural rises and falls that have a significant impact on how you feel when you wake up and on your long-term health. The fascinating part is that what you consume before bed can either support all of this nighttime biological work, or it can actually get in the way of it. Most mainstream nutrition advice focuses entirely on breakfast and meals during the day, and the evening is treated almost like an afterthought. But for people who want to seriously protect their heart health, keep their brains sharp as they age, and get their blood sugar under control, the evening window deserves a lot more attention than it typically gets. Now, before I get to the specific food, I want to give you a little context about why these three systems, your heart, your brain, and your blood sugar regulation, are so deeply connected to each other. A lot of people think about these as separate issues. Someone might say, I have a blood pressure issue, but my blood sugar is fine, or I am managing my cholesterol, but I do not have any memory problems. The reality that researchers and cardiologists have come to understand very clearly is that these three systems are profoundly intertwined. Chronic blood sugar imbalances, even ones that do not rise to the level of a clinical diabetes diagnosis, create inflammation throughout the body, and that inflammation directly damages blood vessel walls. Damaged blood vessel walls are one of the primary drivers of heart disease. At the same time, the brain is extraordinarily dependent on stable blood sugar. The brain uses about 20% of all the energy your body produces, despite only being about 2% of your body weight, and it relies almost entirely on glucose as its fuel. When blood sugar swings up and down erratically, the brain suffers. Neurons become less efficient, memory and focus decline, and over years and decades, this kind of metabolic instability contributes to the cognitive decline that too many people simply write off as a normal part of aging. It is not normal, it is often preventable, and understanding this connection is exactly why the food I am about to tell you about is so interesting, because it addresses all three of these systems simultaneously through a few different but overlapping mechanisms. So what is this food? It is walnuts. And before you roll your eyes and think, oh, just another nut recommendation, I want to encourage you to hear me out because the specific reasons why walnuts in the evening are uniquely beneficial go deeper than most people realize, and the research behind them is genuinely compelling. Walnuts are one of the very few plant foods that contain a meaningful amount of alpha-linolenic acid, which is the plant-based form of omega-3 fatty acids. Now, you have probably heard about omega-3 fatty acids in the context of fish oil or salmon, and that is all accurate. But what makes walnuts distinct is the combination of that omega-3 content alongside melatonin, magnesium, and a collection of polyphenols, which are plant compounds with significant antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. No other commonly available bedtime snack pulls together this specific combination of nutrients in the way that walnuts do. And each of these components plays a role in supporting your heart, your brain, and your blood sugar during the overnight hours. Let me walk you through the heart connection first, because cardiovascular disease remains the leading cause of death in the United States, responsible for roughly 1 in every 5 deaths, according to data from the Centers for Disease Control. That is an enormous number. And one of the central drivers of heart disease is inflammation in the blood vessels, combined with the oxidative stress that damages arterial walls over time. The omega-3 fatty acids in walnuts have been studied extensively for their ability to reduce inflammatory markers in the blood. One of the most consistent findings in nutrition research is that regular walnut consumption is associated with improvements in LDL cholesterol particle size, reductions in total cholesterol, and better endothelial function, which is the health of the inner lining of your blood vessels. The endothelium is critically important because it regulates blood pressure, prevents clotting, and controls how substances move in and out of the bloodstream. When the endothelium is healthy and functioning properly, your risk for heart attacks and strokes goes down significantly. Now here's the overnight angle that makes the timing of eating walnuts before bed particularly relevant. Blood pressure naturally follows a pattern called a nocturnal dip, where it should drop during sleep. Research has found that people whose blood pressure does not dip properly during the night have significantly higher risks of cardiovascular events. The magnesium in walnuts supports vascular relaxation, which helps facilitate that healthy nighttime blood pressure drop. So by consuming walnuts as your last food before sleep, you are essentially giving your cardiovascular system some of the raw materials it needs to do its maintenance work properly while you rest. Now let me shift to the brain piece, because I think this is where a lot of people in our audience are going to find the most personally relevant information. Cognitive decline is one of the most feared aspects of aging, and it is also one of the areas where lifestyle choices, including diet, have a genuinely significant impact. The brain is an extraordinarily fat-rich organ. About 60% of the brain's dry weight is fat, and the specific types of fats that are present in your neural membranes directly influence how efficiently your neurons communicate with each other. Omega-3 fatty acids, particularly the DHA form that your body can partially convert from the alpha-linolenic acid in walnuts, are critical structural components of brain cell membranes. Studies following older adults over multiple years have found associations between higher walnut consumption and better scores on memory tests, faster processing speed, and improved measures of executive function. And while I always want to be careful about presenting observational research as definitive proof, the biological mechanism here is well understood. Better neural membrane integrity means more efficient neurotransmitter signaling, which translates in practical terms to sharper thinking and better memory. But there is another dimension to the brain benefits that connects specifically to nighttime. Walnuts are one of the highest natural food sources of melatonin. Most people know melatonin as a sleep supplement, but its role inside the body is much broader than just regulating your sleep cycle. Melatonin is a powerful antioxidant. Research has shown that it has specific neuroprotective properties, meaning it helps shield brain cells from the kind of oxidative damage that accumulates over years and contributes to conditions like Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. When you eat walnuts before bed, you are providing your brain with a natural source of melatonin at precisely the time when your brain is entering its most active cleanup and repair phase during deep sleep. The glymphatic system, which is the brain's waste-clearing network, is most active during sleep, and it works to flush out amyloid proteins and other debris that, when allowed to accumulate, are associated with neurodegenerative disease. Supporting that process with natural melatonin from food rather than relying entirely on a supplement is a small but meaningful way to work with your body's own biology. Here is something that I want to pause on for a moment because it tends to surprise people when they hear it. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition, Health and Aging followed a large group of adults and found that those who consumed walnuts regularly had notably better scores across multiple measures of cognitive health compared to non-consumers, even after researchers controlled for other lifestyle factors like exercise and overall diet quality. What that means is that the walnut effect on brain health appeared to be independent of other healthy habits. You did not have to be doing everything perfectly for the walnut association to show up in the data. That is an important finding because it suggests that even for someone who is not following a perfect diet, adding this one specific food can make a measurable difference. And that is exactly the kind of practical, actionable information that is genuinely useful in real life rather than just in a research paper. Now let me talk about blood sugar because this is where the story gets particularly interesting for a wide range of people. You do not have to have a diabetes diagnosis for blood sugar instability to be affecting your health. Research now consistently shows that a condition called prediabetes, where blood sugar is elevated but not yet in the clinical diabetes range, affects over 1 in 3 American adults. Many of them have no idea. Even beyond pre-diabetes, normal, healthy adults experience blood sugar fluctuations that can significantly impact energy, sleep quality, mood, and long-term metabolic health. One of the most problematic patterns for people who are trying to manage their weight or their blood sugar is what happens overnight. When you go to bed with blood sugar that is either too high from a carbohydrate-heavy evening meal or with blood sugar that drops too low during the night, both scenarios trigger hormonal responses that disrupt sleep, increase cortisol, and set you up for poor metabolic function the following day. Walnuts have a very low glycemic index, meaning they do not cause a spike in blood sugar when you eat them. But beyond simply being blood sugar neutral, the protein and healthy fat in walnuts actually work together to stabilize blood glucose by slowing digestion and modulating insulin sensitivity. The polyphenols in walnuts, particularly compounds called L-agotannins, have been studied for their ability to support insulin signaling at the cellular level. Some research suggests that regular consumption is associated with better fasting glucose levels and improved insulin sensitivity over time. What this means practically is that eating a small handful of walnuts before bed can help smooth out that overnight blood sugar curve, reducing the likelihood of the kind of nocturnal blood sugar dips that cause you to wake up groggy, cranky, or with that unpleasant 3 a.m. wakefulness that so many people struggle with and never connect back to their eating habits. I want to address something that I know is on some people's minds right now, and that is the question of calories and whether eating before bed causes weight gain. This is one of the most persistent myths in nutrition, and the research has become quite clear on it in recent years. Weight gain is determined by total caloric intake relative to expenditure over time, not by the specific time of day at which calories are consumed. What does matter about evening eating is the type and amount of food. A large bowl of pasta or a bag of chips before bed will not serve you well, not primarily because of timing, but because of the quality of those foods and how they interact with your metabolism. A small handful of walnuts, which is roughly 1 ounce or about 14 walnut halves, contains approximately 185 calories, along with 4 grams of protein, 2 grams of fiber, and nearly 2 grams of plant-based omega-3 fat. That nutritional profile is not going to sabotage anyone's health goals. In fact, the satiety that comes from that combination of protein, fiber, and healthy fat can actually reduce the likelihood of late-night overeating by giving your body something substantive to work with during the overnight hours. Now, I want to add one more layer to this conversation that I think is genuinely important, particularly for anyone who is 50 or older or who has a family history of heart disease or cognitive decline. The concept of nutrient timing, which is the idea that when you consume certain nutrients matters as much as whether you consume them, is becoming an increasingly important area of research in nutrition science. Your body's ability to absorb and utilize certain nutrients actually varies based on the time of day due to the influence of your circadian rhythm on metabolic processes. Magnesium, which is present in significant amounts in walnuts, is particularly relevant here because magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, many of which are most active during sleep. Magnesium supports muscle relaxation, which contributes to better sleep depth. It supports the regulation of heart rhythm, which is obviously critical overnight. And it plays a role in glucose metabolism, connecting back to the blood sugar story. Many older Americans are chronically low in magnesium without knowing it because blood tests for magnesium often do not reflect true cellular levels, and symptoms of mild deficiency like poor sleep, muscle cramps, irregular heartbeat, and elevated blood pressure are frequently attributed to aging or stress rather than to a correctable nutritional gap. Getting a natural source of magnesium in that pre-sleep window is a simple strategy that is almost entirely overlooked in mainstream health advice. Let me also spend a moment talking about what not to eat before bed, because understanding the contrast helps clarify why walnuts specifically work so well in this time window. The most problematic pre-bed foods are anything that causes a significant blood sugar spike, which rules out most processed carbohydrates, sweets, and sugary beverages. High-sodium foods in the evening can elevate blood pressure overnight and impair that nocturnal dip we talked about earlier. Alcohol, despite the fact that many people find it relaxing, is one of the worst things you can consume before sleep from a cardiovascular and brain health standpoint. It suppresses REM sleep, increases inflammation, impairs the brain's glymphatic cleaning process, and causes blood sugar instability during the night. A highly processed, greasy snack before bed increases inflammatory markers and can actually disrupt the gut microbiome in ways that affect both sleep quality and next-day energy. None of these are dramatic conclusions, but what they highlight is that the pre-bed food window is not a neutral time. You are either working with your biology or working against it during those hours. A small handful of walnuts with a glass of water, or perhaps a small cup of herbal tea, is one of the simplest and most evidence-aligned choices you can make for that window. I also want to mention something for people who have specific conditions or who are taking medications. If you are managing blood sugar with medication, particularly insulin or other diabetes drugs, please talk with your doctor before making significant changes to your evening eating routine, even positive ones, because stable blood sugar changes can interact with medication dosing. If you have a tree nut allergy, walnuts are obviously not the right choice for you, and I would encourage you to ask your doctor about other sources of omega-3 fatty acids and magnesium that might work for your situation. And if you are dealing with kidney disease, the phosphorus and potassium content of nuts requires some consideration in your overall dietary plan. For the vast majority of generally healthy adults, though, a small daily serving of walnuts carries virtually no downside and a substantial body of research supporting meaningful benefits. Something I love about the walnut research is how accessible it makes heart and brain health feel. We live in an era of incredibly complicated medical interventions, expensive supplements, and overwhelming health information that can make people feel like improving their health requires significant effort, money, or expertise. And while those interventions certainly have their place, there is something deeply reassuring about the evidence showing that something as simple and affordable as a small handful of walnuts, eaten consistently at the same time each day, preferably before bed, can show up in measurable improvements in cardiovascular markers, cognitive function assessments, and metabolic health over time. It is not a cure, it is not magic, but it is a genuinely powerful, practical, low-effort habit that works with your body's overnight biology in a way that almost nothing else does at that time of day. I want to be real with you for a moment before we close out. The health information I have shared in this video is not going to change your life overnight in a dramatic way. What it represents is a consistent small step in the right direction, the kind of step that, when taken daily over weeks and months and years, quietly stacks up into something that genuinely matters for how you feel, how clearly your mind works, and how well your heart holds up as you move through life. The research on longevity is very clear that it is the consistent, compounding effect of daily habits, not occasional heroic efforts, that determines long-term health outcomes. Adding walnuts to your evening routine is one of those quiet, powerful daily habits that your future self will be grateful for. I would genuinely love to hear from you in the comments below on this. Have you already been incorporating walnuts or other nuts into your daily routine? Have you noticed any changes in your sleep, your energy levels the next morning, or anything related to your heart health or blood sugar? Drop your experience in the comments because I read through them, and your story might be exactly what another person in this community needs to hear to take that first step. And if you have a family member, a friend, or someone you care about who has been dealing with heart health concerns, blood sugar challenges, or cognitive worries, please share this video with them. That one share could genuinely make a difference in their health. Take care of yourself tonight, and I will see you in the next one.